nightly report. Today is November 19th, 2024. World's largest sandcastle topples in Denmark. In a quiet coastal town in Denmark, the largest sandcastle in the world, which stood at 21.16 meters tall, has fallen. It had been a prominent structure along the beach for several months, and it was intended to be a lasting tourist attraction. The structure was carefully built with sand and mixture of clay to make it more stable. However, it appears that despite all the precautions, the wind caused the upper portion to collapse around 2:30 p.m. local time. No one was harmed. The sandcastle's fall wasn't completely unexpected, as the weather conditions had been unpredictable recently. Although the collapse might be seen as a disappointment to some, the organizers are already planning to rebuild a smaller version next year. They expect it to be more durable, but there are no specific plans yet for when this will happen. For now, the site remains closed, and visitors are encouraged to view a photo exhibit of the sandcastle's creation. Interestingly, this isn't the first time such a structure has fallen. Similar large sand creations have faced similar fates in other parts of the world. Some experts in sand sculpting believe that larger creations might be inherently prone to such failures due to the forces of nature. This sandcastle collapse had not caused any significant disruption to the town's daily life, and business continues as usual. Some local shops have expressed mild interest in the event, but overall, it seems to have made little impact on the broader community. It has, however, sparked some debate on the sustainability of large sand sculptures and whether they are worth the effort. Rare moth migration observed in Costa Rica. Today, a rare species of moth, Eumorpha labruscae, was observed in large numbers in Costa Rica. These moths are usually found in tropical areas, but their migration patterns are not commonly seen in such high volumes. Entomologists and biologists have noted the presence of these moths in the region due to the wet season, which seems to have created the right conditions for this event. The moths are known for their distinctive green wings, but there isn't much else that sets them apart from other insects. They are generally harmless and feed on nectar from specific flowers. While this migration might seem interesting, it is not expected to have a major impact on the local ecosystem or agriculture. In fact, the moths have been observed mainly near areas with little agricultural activity, where they are not causing any significant issues. For some locals, the arrival of the moth is simply a curiosity, and a few have taken photographs of the phenomenon. However, most people seem indifferent to the event. Some entomologists believe that the moth presence could indicate healthy environmental conditions, but this is not yet certain. The weather has been particularly wet this year, and it is possible that this is simply an anomaly in the moth's usual behavior. Local tours have been organized to view moths, but these have not seen overwhelming attendance. The moths are primarily nocturnal and do not stay in one place for long, making them difficult to observe in great detail. Nonetheless, the event has gathered some attention from a few nature enthusiasts and photographers. As with most insect migrations, the impact of this event is expected to be temporary. The moth will likely move on in a few days or weeks, and the local environment will return to its usual state. There is little expectation that this event will have long-term significance beyond the immediate observations. Icelandic Knitting Festival draws record crowd. The Reykjavik Knitting Festival, which has been held annually for some time now, attracted a larger than usual crowd this year. The event is primarily focused on the craft of knitting, particularly the Icelandic tradition of woolen sweaters, which are known as lopapeysa. This year's festival saw over 2,000 attendees, which is a record high for the event. However, despite the increase in numbers, the atmosphere was relatively calm, with many attendees quietly browsing the booth and taking part in workshops. Workshops were held throughout the day, teaching various knitting techniques. These workshops seemed to attract a decent amount of interest, though it was not clear whether all attendees were enthusiastic participants or just casual observers. Some people took part in speed knitting competitions, which lasted a few minutes each. These competitions were generally low-key, with no particular excitement surrounding the outcomes. A few local experts gave talks on the history of Icelandic knitting, but these talks didn't appear to generate much discussion. In addition to the workshops, there were various exhibits displaying historical knitting patterns and garments. These were mostly of interest to those who were familiar with the history of Icelandic textiles. The overall mood of the festival was relatively subdued, with many people simply enjoying a quiet day in a well-structured event. Despite the record attendance, the economic impact of the event on Reykjavik is expected to be modest. Local hotels and businesses have reported slight increases in bookings, but no major changes in tourism trends. Many attendees also took the opportunity to explore the city's other attractions, though there were no notable upticks in visitors to museums or cultural sites. The event organizers are hopeful that the festival will continue to grow, but there is no indication that this year's record attendance will have any lasting effects on the knitting community or the broader Icelandic tourism industry. The festival remains a niche event, attended mainly by those who already have an interest in knitting or Icelandic culture. Remote Island declares Banana Day in French Polynesia. In the small island of Rimatara in French Polynesia, today was declared Banana Day. The island has a population of about 850 people, and banana farming is one of its key industries. The island is known for its banana crops, and this celebration was meant to highlight the importance of the fruit to local life. The event included a small parade featuring banana-themed costumes and displays, though the participation seemed to be minimal. Several dishes made with bananas were prepared, including banana fritters and banana wraps. These were available for locals to sample. The cooking demonstrations were well received by those in attendance, though there did not seem to be any overwhelming enthusiasm. A banana eating contest was held, which had a few participants, but it ended quickly without much fanfare. There was also a brief presentation on the economic importance of bananas to the island, which was informative but not particularly exciting. The event organizers emphasized the challenges of banana farming, particularly the impact of pests and climate change. However, these discussions were fairly brief, and few seemed overly engaged in the details. The island's tourism sector appears to have seen some slight increase in visitors for Banana Day, but it is unclear whether this will lead to lasting changes in the economy. Hotels and guest houses reported a small uptick in bookings, though the number of tourists visiting the island is still relatively low. The local government plans to hold this event again next year, but it remains to be seen whether it will continue to attract any significant attention. For now, Banana Day is expected to remain a quaint local celebration, likely of more interest to the island's residents than to visitors or those outside of the immediate region. There are no plans to expand the event or make it more widely known, and it will probably remain a small, isolated tradition. Moving on to markets. Raintech Inc. Stock symbol RAI, a company focused on irrigation systems, saw its stock rise by a small 1.4% today, closing at $47.12. While the increase is somewhat notable, it is not particularly significant in the broader context of the market. Investors seem to have reacted mildly to Raintech's steady performance in agricultural sectors, particularly in regions facing water scarcity. Despite this, analysts note that the company has faced some challenges in competing with larger firms in the same space. There hasn't been any major shift in Raintech's product offerings recently, and its future growth largely depends on continuing to maintain steady demand for its existing systems. While the company does have some international operations, especially in emerging markets, there is no indication that its growth trajectory will accelerate significantly. As with most companies in the agriculture sector, the outlook remains relatively stable, but not particularly exciting. Investors are expected to continue watching Raintech's performance closely, but there is little indication that this company will see any major changes in the near future. The stock is likely to continue to move in small increments, reflecting the company's steady but unspectacular position in the market. Global Threads Limited, stock symbol GTX, a company known for its affordable clothing, experienced a slight decrease of 0.8% in the stock price today, ending at 31.46 US dollars. The company has faced several challenges over the past few months, particularly with the rise of sustainable fashion and changing consumer preferences. Despite this, Global Threads continues to hold a place in the market, albeit with a fairly small share. There are concerns about the company's reliance on a traditional business models, and many investors are wondering whether it will be able to keep up with trends like eco-friendly fashion and ethical production practices. The company has stated that it's working on some new lines to address these issues, but there is no clear indication that this will have a major impact on sales in the short term. The stock price is likely to continue its slow movements as the company works through its challenges. It is unlikely that any major shift will occur without a significant overhaul of its business model. Until then, the stock is expected to remain in the same range, with only modest fluctuations. Nimbus Energy Partners, stock symbol NEP, saw a slight increase of 0.5% today, closing at 18.24 US dollars. The renewable energy sector is growing, but Nimbus has faced difficulties in diversifying its offerings. The company has yet to invest significantly in newer technologies, and it remains reliant on solar and wind power, which are becoming increasingly competitive. Despite these challenges, Nimbus has managed to maintain a foothold in the energy market. However, its future growth will depend largely on its ability to diversify and invest in more cutting-edge energy solutions. Investors will likely remain cautious about the stock, awaiting more concrete plans for expansion. Evergreen Plastics Corp, stock symbol EPC, had a quiet day, with the stock closing at 22.85 US dollars, up by a small 0.2%. The company continues to focus on biodegradable plastics, but its growth has been slow. The market for eco-friendly plastics is still developing, and Evergreen faces significant competition. The company's recent investment in new manufacturing facilities may improve efficiency, but it is unclear whether this will have any immediate impact on stock prices. Analysts are keeping a close watch, but there are no strong indications that the company will see any substantial growth in the near future. Moving on to sports. The Finnish Pesapallo semi-final between the Turku Eagles and the Helsinki Hammers concluded with a 9-7 victory for the Turku Eagles. The game, which was not widely attended, remained fairly uneventful except for the final inning. Both teams played at a pace that could only be described as steady, with the crowd of around 300 maintaining an air of calm. There was no particular excitement surrounding the match, though the final play did draw a slight increase in attention. At the Scottish Women's Curling Open, the Loch Ness ladies defeated the Highland Rollers 8-6 in the quarterfinals. This match was fairly typical for curling, with both teams playing at a moderate pace. No particularly dramatic shots were made, and the event remained under the radar for most sports fans. The game was characterized by a series of small, incremental plays, and the atmosphere was subdued throughout. The Thai Regional Badminton Championships held in Khon Kaen concluded with the unexpected victory of a 16-year-old duo from Khon Kaen. Their win in the doubles finals was somewhat surprising, given their status as underdogs. The match was lengthy and involved many exchanges, though there was little significant movement in terms of points. The players, though exhausted by the end, managed to close out the match in their favor after a series of long rallies. In an unexpected turn of events, at the South American Futsal Cup, Bolivia's Daddy Harichen defeated Uruguay's Canelones squad 4-3 after a penalty shootout. The game had little noteworthy action until the final moments, when the shootout brought a level of anticipation. The match itself was fairly typical of futsal, with brief bursts of activity followed by long pauses. This concludes tonight's World Nightly Report. If you are still awake, I am sorry. I did my best. Like, share, comment. Somnify is out. Good night.